I went to a bid yesterday and the client asked me for a bid on some specific trees in the front yard. And I looked at them really closely and I honestly could not see that the trees needed any work. Some of them were young birch trees that were just perfect. There was nothing wrong with them. Maybe a little tiny bit of dead wood, maybe a few little snips here and there, but for the most part, the trees didn't need a thing. And then the client said that I was the third bidder and that the other two companies suggested a lot of work for these trees. And it really got me thinking, when a client calls you, oftentimes they don't know if your trees need to be pruned or not. And as the professional, it really is up to you to be honest. You have to tell them if the tree is okay. And if you walk away from the job, tell them that they don't need anything, that's a client that's going to remember you. That's a client that's going to say that this person has integrity, and they're going to pass on your name to their friends. That's how you build a business. You don't build a business by doing work that's not necessary or over pruning a tree or doing improper tree work. It's kind of a tough business because there's a lot of guys out there that just don't know what they're doing. They might be really skillful with a chainsaw. They might be really, good at cleaning up and, really hard workers, but they don't understand what a tree needs. So if this is a business that you're in or are getting into, the advice that I would give you is A, always be honest. B, don't sell something that's not necessary. And C, let your integrity lead the way. There's been an awful lot of dishonesty in the world lately, and it's time for a change. So I'm going to show you a little bit of this next video. It's very short, but you tell me. There's really nothing that these trees need to have done to them, but the client didn't know that. They called me in because they thought that maybe it was time to trim their trees. And trees aren't on a schedule. That you don't say this tree needs to be trimmed every 3 years. There are cases where that's true, but generally not. So, hope you enjoy this little short video. All right, I was asked to come out and give a bid on the magnolias and the birch. There's a crepe myrtle there, there's another birch, and over behind the sun there's another magnolia. And the reason for this video is a lot of times people call me in and they don't really know what a tree needs, or they believe that a tree needs to be serviced every so many years. Well, from my perspective here, I can't see anything that needs to be done. Now, a lot of times people say, well, it doesn't look nice and perfect and round. Well, it's really not supposed to. Trees are not always symmetrical, and there's nothing wrong with the way it's growing, and there's no logical reason to round it over and bring it back in all the way around. If it was right next to the building, that might be a different story because of clearance issues. If it was hanging too low over the road and trucks were hitting it, that could be an issue. Now, if you compare this tree to the neighbor's tree, see, now that neighbor's tree has been shaped, it's been brought down, and aesthetically you can say, wow, that looks so much better. This thing looks a little bit wild. Well, I see a few dead branches up there, but it's kind of, because it's a double trunk tree, it's kind of developed that stature, and I'm going to make the recommendation just to leave it alone. Now the birch tree, this little birch tree right here is doing just perfect. There might be a little bit of dead wood in there, but at this time of year it's even hard to tell. So usually I tell people, wait till the springtime, let it fully leaf out and let's see what's going on. But in terms of birch trees, this is about as perfect as they get. Now maybe they want to raise it up a little bit because they want to walk underneath it. That's all okay, but in terms of what does it need, it doesn't need anything. This little crepe myrtle here, it's been staked up a few times, and the stakes are redundant. You can even see the original nursery stake down there. So I would recommend, first thing I would do would be to go up and give it a little push and see if it's if it's moving at the base. Now it's solid as can be, so those stakes are absolutely useless. Get them out of there. Let's take a look at this birch over here. Now a lot of times people say, I don't want anything hanging over my roof. So I see that somebody's been making cuts over the roof to keep it back from the roof. And you know, to a point you can do that, but you know, it's like saying that, do the leaves fall straight down? No, the leaves from the whole tree are going to, you know, drift over onto the roof. So sometimes getting the branches from being over the roof is really a waste of time. I see a little dead stub up there, but once again, you know, it's a single leader tree. It does kind of branch off. It's a little imbalanced at the top, but there's nothing I could recommend to do to this tree. Nothing of any critical importance. Then finally we've got this other magnolia. I'm going to say the same thing. They don't need anything. Everything looks great. There's a nice magnolia across the street there. And there's one over there. There's kind of a lot of magnolias in this area. So don't always look at a bid and say, what can I get out of it? Be honest. Tell the clients when nothing needs to be done. And I've built my company based on honesty and truth. And there's one thing that I will not tolerate, and that's a liar. This is my 48th year in business. I do not spend a dime on advertising, and I stay plenty busy. You know, granted, I've chosen to stay small. I have been much larger. I've had as many as 12 guys working for me in the past, and that's not really what I want to be. You know, I don't feel like putting out fires and, you know, constantly dealing with guys making mistakes. I'd rather have one efficient crew, and I'm part of the crew, and you know, 9 times out of 10 everything goes really smooth. You know, nobody's perfect. Sometimes we screw up. We broke a Japanese maple the other day, and I got to go deal with that. Anyway, long story short is be honest, have integrity, do what's right for the trees. Your clients will appreciate it, and that's the way to build a company that will persevere.